Welcome to Drunken Zombies. I'm Adrian, and each day we'll be serving up an addictive zombie story, all in a fun, scary way. With masterful storytelling that'll leave you craving more tales of brains and mayhem.
I'm Julia, and I'm so excited to be here with you all.
For our very first story, we're jumping into Jurassic Z. You heard that right, folks. We're blending the terror of zombies with the prehistoric power of dinosaurs.
Buckle up, this one's a wild ride.
Our story takes place on Isla Nebula, this remote island. Well, a group of ambitious scientists think they're just conducting an experiment.
Experiment is one way to put it. Let's just say things go very wrong.
Before we get into all that, what are your initial thoughts on this dino-zombie combo, Julia?
Okay, so the idea of a resurrected dinosaurs is already pretty mind-blowing, but then you throw in the zombie element and things get really interesting. I mean, we're suddenly dealing with creatures that are not only physically powerful, but also driven by this insatiable hunger. It's a recipe for disaster, to say the least.
Right. A T-Rex is scary enough on its own, but a zombie T-Rex, that's a whole new level of terrifying. Let me set the scene a bit. We've got our three main players. Dr. Elena Mora, a brilliant scientist. Jack Mercer, a seasoned hunter with a shadowy past. And Aidan Brooks, an idealistic activist.
What's interesting is how each of them is drawn to Isla Nebula for different reasons. Elena's there for the sciences. Jack seems to be running from something. And Aidan, well, he's got this whole save the world complex. But they're all about to face the same nightmare.
Speaking of nightmares, the story starts with a sense of wonder. We get these vivid descriptions of these extinct creatures brought back to life. There's even this peaceful giant, a diplodocus, just grazing amongst the trees. It's almost magical, but then boom.
Right, and like you said, things take a dark turn. What's really clever, though, is the foreshadowing. Early on, Elena voices her concerns about playing God with these creatures. It's like she knows deep down that something bad is going to happen. And sure enough,
containment breach.
Chaos.
Dinosaurs transforming into, you guessed it, Zombie dinosaurs.
What gets me is how everyone reacts so differently. You've got scientists running for their lives, security guards trying to contain these monstrous creatures. It's fascinating to see how our main characters' personalities clash with this horrifying situation.
You've got Jack the Hunter instantly going into survival mode. He's ready to fight, no hesitation.
Then there's Elena the scientist, desperately trying to find some logical solution. But you can tell she's terrified.
And Aidan, talk about a shattered worldview. His idealism just crumbles. He can't wrap his head around the idea of killing these creatures even though they're clearly a threat.
It's almost like they represent three different ways humanity could respond to a crisis like this.
I like that. We've got the fighter, the thinker, and the idealist. But idealism only gets you so far when you've got a zombie T-Rex on your tail. And that's where the real horror starts to set in.
That T-Rex attack is a game changer. It establishes the stakes, shows just how relentless these zombie dinos are. From that point on, there's this constant sense of dread, this dwindling hope that anyone's going to make it out alive.
It's the classic zombie movie setup. But with this added layer of scientific experimentation and ethical dilemmas, it makes you wonder, what would you do in that situation?
Right. Fight, think, or hope for the best. And what happens when those options run out?
Speaking of running out of options, they eventually come up with this risky plan to reverse engineer the virus and create something that specifically targets the infected dinosaurs. They figure, hey, let's fight fire with fire, or in this case, a virus with another virus. But they're going to need samples, and that means heading deep into the dangerous jungle.
This is where things get really interesting for me. They know the risks, but they're willing to face them because the alternative is even worse.
The scene where they get ambushed by those zombie velociraptors is insane. It's so intense they barely make it out alive.
But the real gut punch comes when they lose their sanctuary. They had this fortified compound, but it gets overrun by a horde of undead led by, you guessed it, a monstrous T-Rex. And this is where we see Jack's true colors.
He holds off the hordes so Elena and Aidan can escape with the potential cure. It's heartbreaking. He went from this gruff, mysterious hunter to a true hero sacrificing himself for something bigger than himself. What did you think of that moment, Julia?
It definitely caught me off guard. It made me think about how people can surprise you, especially in high-pressure situations. He was basically willing to die for a slim chance that humanity could survive this.
And what about Elena and Aidan? They escaped with the potential cure, but they're far from safe. They stumble upon this abandoned facility and make a shocking discovery. The island was actually a secret military experiment. Talk about a betrayal. So now they're not only dealing with zombie dinosaurs, but they're also caught in the middle of some massive conspiracy.
This is where we start to see the layers of the story peel back, It makes you question who the real monsters are. Is it the dinosaurs, or is it the people who created this mess in the first place?
Right. And what about the implications of this military experiment? Could the outbreak spread beyond the island?
It's a chilling thought. I mean, they might have the potential cure, but what if it's already too late?
And remember, the island's self-destruct sequence is ticking away. They're literally racing against time to develop this Hail Mary virus, while also facing off against the alpha zombie dinosaur.
This alpha is like the ultimate predator. It's a nightmare concoction of all the island's deadliest creatures. Imagine a T-Rex with the speed of a velociraptor and the cunning of, well, something even smarter than a velociraptor.
It's the final showdown. Everything they've been through, everything they've lost has led to this moment.
We left Elena and Aiden facing some seriously long odds. Not only is the island about to self-destruct, but they're staring down this alpha zombie dinosaur. Talk about pressure.
Yeah, it's like all those classic zombie movie tropes just got thrown into a blender with a bunch of dinosaurs. They're fighting for their own survival, sure, but they're also carrying the potential cure. The hook for humanity rests on their shoulders.
Exactly. So how do they even approach fighting this alpha? They're up against this monstrous hybrid of every top predator on the island.
That's what I'm wondering. They've been studying these creatures, trying to understand the virus. But facing it head-on is another thing altogether.
It's fascinating how the story uses their past experiences to inform their strategy. Remember that velociraptor ambush? They barely made it out alive, but it taught them how these zombie dinos move and think, or at least how much thinking they're doing.
Right, so they start using that knowledge to their advantage. Setting traps, using the environment as a weapon.
It's this prehistoric David and Goliath situation. But instead of a slingshot, they have a vial of concentrated virus.
Ah, the Hail Mary cure they've been working on. But how do they get close enough to use it on this massive raging beast?
Teamwork and a whole lot of guts. Aiden draws the alpha's attention, basically using himself as bait to give Elena a chance.
That's some serious bravery right there. So what's Elena doing while Aiden is risking life and limb?
Waiting for the perfect moment. The source material mentions something about the neural pathways being the key to stopping the infection.
Interesting. So brute force isn't enough. It's about understanding how this virus has hijacked the dinosaurs' brains.
Exactly. She has to target the source of the infection. It's a risky move because one wrong step and she's dino chow.
Okay, so Aiden's buying time. Elena's got the virus ready. What happens next?
The tension in this scene is incredible. The alpha is roaring jaws wide open, about to make a snack out of Aiden, but then Elena sees her chance. She throws the vial of concentrated virus straight into the alpha's mouth.
Talk about a Hail Mary. But did it work?
It's like someone hit the reset button on this monstrous creature. The virus overwhelms its system, causing it to convulse and finally collapse.
What a win. But they're not out of the woods yet. The island is still primed to blow sky high.
They race to the old communication center, desperately hoping to send a distress signal.
Do they manage to get it out in time?
Barely. The rescue team arrives just as the island is exploding behind them.
Ooh, that was close.
Talk about a narrow escape. They're battered, bruised, and undoubtedly traumatized, but they're alive, and they have the cure.
It's a bittersweet victory, though, right? They lost Jack, and who knows what other horrors might be lurking out there in the world.
You're right. Elena even voices that fear. What if the virus spread beyond the island? What if this is just the beginning?
That's a chilling thought. And as if to underline that point, the story ends with this image of a dark shape moving beneath the waves as they're flying away in the helicopter.
It's almost as if the story is saying, hey, you might have survived this time, but don't think for a second that you've won.
Yeah, it gives me chills just thinking about it.
What do you think it was, Adrian? Another zombie dinosaur? Or something even worse?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it definitely makes you wonder what else might be out there.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Jurassic Sea. It's entertaining, action-packed, but it also makes you think.
Right. It's got all those classic zombie tropes, but then it layers in the scientific thriller aspect and these deeper questions about humanity's role in all of this.
It's a cautionary tale for sure. But before we go full-on philosophy mode, let's hear what our listeners think.
Yeah. What are your theories about that dark shape in the water? Could the virus have spread? Was that the only alpha?
Don't be shy. Hit us up on social media and let us know what you think.
And be sure to rate and follow the show. We'll be back tomorrow with another spine-tingling story.
Until then, keep those doors locked, your weapons loaded, and those drinks strong. You never know what kind of horrors might be lurking around the corner.
See you next time.
Welcome back to Drunken Zombies, It's Jurassic Z story. It's really gotten under my skin.
I know what you mean. It's one of those stories that stays with you long after you finish it.
Absolutely. We've talked about the action, the suspense, the characters.
Yeah.
But for me, what really hits home is that underlying message about humanity's hubris.
Oh, totally. It's like a cautionary tale about our obsession with controlling nature.
And the unintended consequences that can come back to bite us,
Big time. This story makes you question whether some scientific boundaries are better left uncrossed.
Right. I mean, who hasn't fantasized about bringing back dinosaurs at some point?
Yeah.
But after Jurassic Z, I'm thinking maybe we should leave those giant lizards in the past.
Seriously, let sleeping dinos lie right. But all joking aside, I think what makes this story so effective is that it blends those big ideas with a genuinely thrilling narrative.
Totally agree. The pacing is relentless, the characters are compelling, and that cliffhanger ending, pure genius.
Speaking of that ending, what are your thoughts on that dark shape beneath the waves?
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Could be another zombie dinosaur, some kind of mutated sea creature, or maybe even something entirely new.
I kind of hope it's something we haven't even imagined yet. Something that takes the horror to a whole other level.
That's what I love about this genre. You never know what's lurking around the corner.
Exactly. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, constantly wondering what's going to happen next.
And Jurassic Z definitely delivers on that front. It's a wild ride from start to finish.
Well said. So what do we want our listeners to take away from this story?
I think it's a reminder that the choices we make today, particularly when it comes to science and technology, can have far-reaching consequences.
And that even in the face of unimaginable horror, there's always hope. Always a chance to fight back and make things right.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, zombie fans, stay curious, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay thirsty for more tales of brains and mayhem.
Cheers to that. And don't forget to rate and follow Drunken Zombies for your daily dose of zombie goodness. We'll be back tomorrow with another bone-chilling story.
Until then, sleep tight, and don't let the zombie dinos bite.